Hi everyone, back again. It's been a little while since I've been kind of posting consistently, but I've just been doing a lot of prep for my Death Guard army. As you can see here, this is the fully completed picture of my Death Guard Nurgle prints. This is what we're working towards, so let's get into it. Now I'm doing a couple of thin layers of dark purple by Procryl, and you're just hitting this directly from underneath to get all of the shadows. Don't worry if there's a bit of overspill, that'll get dealt with later. As you can see, is white from above, purple from below, and a nice mix looking straight on. And now we're going to use Ryken Flesh Shade. This is going to be around 3, maybe 4 coats. Don't saturate the model, just put some thin coats on and the colour will build up. Get it to where you want it, you don't have to do it as dark as I did. Establishing these colours now will really help with the undertones of the lighter greens that we're putting on later on. And after this stage, we're coming in with Arctic Blue and we're just doing a nice heavy dry brush over the whole model. And as you can see, it still very much is purple in the recesses, and Ryken Flesh Shade from above. We just hit the highlighted areas. And then next up, I'm just using some of this AK Camouflage masking putty, and I'm just masking off the areas that I wish to remain that kind of dirty, rusted metal colour. We're going to do 2 or 3 thin layers of Black Forest Green. This is a really nice, vibrant but dark green. It's definitely one of my favourite greens that I've seen from Scale 75. It's a really nice colour. And after this, we're again going to come back and we're going to do a lighter dry brush of Arctic Blue. And now we're going to come in with Moot Green. And we're giving 2, maybe 3 really light thin coats with this. We don't want to go overboard on this. Obviously this is the main colour and it will be the predominant colour that is shining through, but we also want to keep some of the undertones, which you can see in the recesses. It is slightly darker. Now it's all subtle, it's not a very stark contrast, but I don't like super stark contrasts. I think it looks kind of cartoony. I personally prefer more of a kind of natural look. And next up, we're just going to use a 50-50 of Moot Green and Soul Yellow, and we're just going to hit the highlighted areas across the body. You can see here I'm just showing the areas that I'm kind of mainly focusing on, like the kneecaps, toes, top of the stomach, face, etc. And then we're just going to come in and dry brush some Soul Yellow. I've had some good feedback from people that have watched my videos recently. It seems to be that people kind of 50-50 on me just telling you how I'm painting and me just kind of naturally talking and having a chat. So from now on, it's going to be kind of a 50-50 in my videos. This is quite a long video and you can see what I'm doing on the screen, so I feel like there's things we can be talking about. I don't want to sit and repeat the same thing over and over again. When I paint in a very reductive process. I use retarder in all my paints. I put paint on, I use a clean wet brush to then feather out the edges to get nice blends. If I'm using a couple of different paints to do wet blending, which I haven't really done much of with the filmed videos yet, but it's the same process. I'll put retarder in both the paints, I'll put them on the model where I want them, I'll mix them, and I'll use a clean brush to feather out edges on the exterior of where the paint is being laid. That's just how I paint. I really like painting in that kind of style and process. It's something that you're going to see with a lot of my work. I paint in a very similar way. So I think just talking and generally having a conversation about what is happening in life, what's going on, things with the community, is going to be more productive than me just waffling on and saying the exact same thing or a very similar thing for a lot of my videos. I kind of got a bit bogged down with everything that I was doing. It was just way too much that I was trying to crank out, and I was falling behind on other things. So after having a couple of weeks break from uploading, of those 2 weeks off, I spent most of that time every day just getting my Death Guard army and a lot of models ready to paint. Because of the way I build, I don't tend to just make the model, glue it to the base, and go and start painting. I have this thing where if I'm going to put the amount of time that I put into making the models, I then want to put a similar amount of time into doing basing, making fake rocks, putting all of the models in interesting poses, because essentially I don't want to paint the same model 50 times over. When I'm doing the Death Guard army, for instance, with Plague Marines, etc., I don't want to paint 40 of the same model. It's boring. If I can put them on different rocks in different poses, give them a slight tilt on the angle that they're standing, slight differences and slight kit bashes to helmets and guns and stuff like that, for me at least, it helps create an army that just feels really nice. Essentially, what I'm trying to get at is, it takes me a long time to build my armies, but I enjoy every part of the process. I enjoy making the models, I enjoy doing interesting bases and getting the model to come together on the base. I enjoy the painting process as well. All of the parts of putting together a model, making an army, I enjoy all of those parts. So I kind of want to get my value for money and just have a good time. And have as much of a good time with every single part of the model. Now with these Nurglings, I just wanted to do something a little bit different. I've painted this model a couple of times before now, and I've always kind of left the Nurglings basically the same colour as the skin, maybe giving them a slight Beal tan just to give them a slight tint. This time I just decided I'd make them all a slightly different colour. It's just fun. a bit of dark purple, a bit of Beal Tan. I think I used Beal Tan twice. The Nurgling that's on the shoulder that got Beal Tan on it has a different colour to him because the Nurgling in the barrel was covered over. So I got away with using Beal Tan twice, getting slightly different variants of green, and then just a little bit of Athonian camo shade on the other Nurgling in the barrel. Just gives a slight different variance in colour. Looks nice. Now we're just coming in with a Roko, hitting all the teeth, all the bone, claws, anything that we want to look like bone, basically. We're just giving a couple of thin layers of a Roko. And then coming in with some bold titanium white, thinned down with retarder, putting a little bit on the highest edges. Again, any areas you don't want it, because we've got the retarder, we can come back in with a clean wet brush, give it a wipe around. We can just let that Roko stand dominant in the recesses. Recently I've seen some interesting things happening within the Warhammer community. It happens every now and then. Things happen, there's controversies, there's arguments, and it's kind of sad, honestly, that people are fighting and arguing online over essentially plastic soldiers. Now, I know there's a whole lore element to it, and that's fine. I love the lore of Warhammer, like all aspects of the lore in the sense of Warhammer, 40k, AOS, fantasy, Necromunda, Blood Bowl, blah 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 blah, etc. I just enjoy the lore. It's fun, it's cool. It brings life to the universes. And these are fictional universes. Now, I have a bit of a hot take on this. I can understand why people get so aggro and annoyed. I can understand it. Like, the way things are handled isn't necessarily done the best way. And that's just, it's true. It's just not done the best way. So it's a bit of a loaded subject. With this whole female Custodes thing, I personally don't care if there are male or female Custodes. It is what it is. I just don't care. But the sentiment that I initially had as a thought process was, if they're going to do it, when you have authors, really, you know, top ranking authors for Games Workshop, approach Games Workshop with ideas for stories, whether they be fully fledged novella series or standalone novels, but have been turned down multiple times from Games Workshop. I can see why there's a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. As someone who's moderately in depth into the lore, I don't think the majority of people that have a problem with female Custodes have a problem with them being female. I think they have a problem with lazy retcons, which just causes an upheaval within the community and within the lore. I think the approach that Games Workshop took of coming back with snarky comments on social media really needs to be looked at from Games Workshop, because they're not presenting themselves in a very good manner. And they're not treating their brand or their customers with any level of respect by allowing people to essentially troll on their social media. Now, I'm definitely down for a laugh and having fun, but when you make a lore change which is very significant, but you do it in such a half-assed kind of way, that's where you can see why a lot of people get very angry. And I can understand that. I personally only saw a few comments which were women can't be Custodes. I genuinely only saw a few comments that were like that. Interestingly enough, I had a bit of a search for what the perspective is online from our female gamers on this subject, and I saw a good few videos that I found quite interesting, which essentially alluded in the comments and in the videos from the females, women, etc. within our community of wargaming. They don't even like the change of there being female Custodes, and it was for no reason other than it's kind of like being slapped in the face by Games Workshop, because obviously there is Sisters of Silence, there's Sisters of Battle. They have their own predicaments within the lore and within the real world for stereotyping, but they made valid points that with this change and it just being a quick couple of paragraphs thrown into a codex and being such a large change within the lore, that what I was seeing from a lot of female gamers was they didn't like it because they felt like they were being treated like dogs, just being thrown a bone. Now what I saw was genuinely a lot of female gamers being kind of upset that they would change the lore in such a big way but do it so lazily that it would then cause hostilities between the sexes in this game that we all love. And I thought that was a very interesting take, one that kind of was in line with my original thought, that Games Workshop really need to stop with these lazy changes. If you're going to do something like this, do it with effort and pizzazz. Let everybody know that it's been done for a specific reason, whether that reason is just for the sake of inclusivity because of the rumours of the Amazon deal and stuff like that, or because you actually have decided, you know, it would be more interesting if we did X, Y, and Z for this part of the lore, regardless of what that change would be. The greatest take that I can kind of put out there to my audience from what I've seen from the female gamers within our community is most of them are also pretty pissed that they've just had something thrown at them in a kind of offhanded manner. And a lot of them were also not very happy with the way Games Workshop handled it towards their fans, because they are fans as well, and they don't want to be put in a position where hostility is getting driven towards them when they've done nothing wrong. And that's basically what has happened and what we've seen a lot of online. It's essentially just a lot of Chad-like bros going, I don't like this, it's a lore change. And cool, yeah, most people don't like lore changes. But lore changes do happen a lot. It's happened with the Tau, it's happened with Necrons, it's happened with most things. It happens because they have to keep writing, they have to keep developing, so sometimes little things here get retconned. Now, yeah, this is quite a big thing, and I get that. It is quite a large thing. I guess for the people that have been following the lore for a long time, or just people that are just passionate about the lore staying kind of I think unblemished is the wrong word. Essentially, I think listening to the fans is, for the most part, a good thing for Games Workshop to do, but especially the female fans that are the ones that have been put kind of under fire because of this action that they've made. Especially with a lot of them that I've seen not even really caring or wanting to have female Custodes. It is what it is. I personally don't care if there's male or female Custodes, but seems a bit of a shame that we have so much controversy and angst unneedlessly thrown into the community by Games Workshop. So that's my thoughts on the matter. Games Workshop, we love your models, we love your lore, but some of your internal practices and things you've been doing, they just ain't cutting it, so maybe think about that. When you're using Techno Green by Scale 75, just remember to use it neat and go around the edges of the area that you want to have the glow on, using a clean wet brush as usual, just to feather out some of the areas. It really helps make a nice OSL effect. This paint, when you water it down just the slightest bit, becomes instantly a glaze. So you really want to use it neat as much as possible and put a little extra on the area you want. Then come in with a clean, slightly wet brush and just kind of feather out the edges, and you'll get some really nice transitions quite easily. I did go a bit heavy on the tongue, so at some point later in the future, when I do some more touch-ups, I'll address that and glaze some orange back into there. Using this moss effect is really nice actually, although mine didn't turn out quite as bright as it has done when I've tested it on other models. I don't know why, but it is what it is. It gives a nice dark kind of green into the recesses. So for this stage we're basically ready to do the resin pour. We're just now getting a couple of tufts in. These little kind of reeds I've made myself. At some point soon, I'll do a video showing how I make those tufts. It's really easy and they look really natural. When applying Dirty Down Rust, what I like to do is put 2 to 4 thick layers on. Then I like to sometimes stipple a little bit of water on, because that'll make the pigments change and bring out different colours. And then I use a very lightly moist piece of foam and I just kind of stipple and drag a little bit over it to get a bit of variation. Then I come back in with a little bit more rust, whether it be yellow rust or just the standard rust, depending on what look I'm going for. With the rust effects on this model, I wanted to get a higher contrast, so I used Soul Yellow with some retarder in it. Just stippling it onto certain areas where there's a lot of orange rust to break it up and create a little bit more contrast. It's a very kind of subtle look and effect, but it's nice. And before we do the resin pour, we're just putting some streaking grime. Now what I'm doing is just dabbing it at the base of the reeds and drawing it upwards. Then I'm using a clean wet brush to clean the top of the reeds and draw downwards towards the base of the reeds. Then once I've finished doing the streaking grime on the reeds, I'm then applying it to the recessed areas on the base where the reeds are sitting, to help establish a difference in tone from the rocks. Now when doing the resin pour, I'm just using some clear Anycubic 3D printing resin. I'm putting a couple of dabs of Techno Green by Scale 75 onto the base. I'm then putting a few dabs of resin on, using a cocktail stick just to mix it up. This will help separate the Techno Green and get it to actually ball up, and it gives you a nice 3D kind of spherical object within the actual resin itself. You're basically just building up multiple different layers until you get the effect that you want. So how we're going to do these videos from now on is I want to kind of mix up talking about what I'm doing in the tutorial, as well as generally just chatting about what's going on in the community. It won't always be negative, it won't always be positive, you know. At some parts I'll talk about the model and what I'm doing on the model, and at other parts I'm just going to talk about what's happening with me and my hobby life. Let me know what's going on in your life. What hobbies are you doing at the moment? What armies are you painting? What models are you building? What do you find that you're enjoying? Let me know. And let's have a look at the final results. Thank you for your support.